What's up people, it's Wasabi and I'm back with another review. And today we're gonna take a look at the XM2w 4K V2. This is the new version, the V2 by Endgame Gear, released in August this year. This one is pretty much the same thing as the V1, so if you already own that mouse and it's working just fine, there is no need to get the V2 unless the XM2 is your favorite shape and you want to own more than one colorway. Anyway, as always with the content on my channel, these are my thoughts, personal opinions, and experiences with the product. Now here's a quick look at the packaging because that's what you pay for too. When I first took it out of the shipping packaging and got to the case, my first impression went something like, this is the nicest case that I've ever seen come with a gaming mouse. I know it's not a new thing, they had this case come with the previous version, but I've only experienced the OP1 series, which does not include a nice case like this one. I like that it's very simple yet practical and it feels like you're getting more for a mouse of this price. Inside the case, you get a set of large skates. The set of small skates is already fitted on the mouse, a quick start guide, user compliance guide, rated USB-C cable, very nice and bendy, 4K polling rate receiver, the mouse itself, and that's pretty much all that's included inside the box. Now before we go any further, let's manage some expectations here real quick. The XM2w 4K V2, the way they name the mice can be a little confusing and gets annoying at times because it is such a mouthful. For the XM2w 4K V2, I first got a hands-on experience at Computex Taipei this year, and I thought that even though this thing is a little too wide, this will be a mouse that many people will be comparing to when new versions of alternative options come out. You know, such as the Ninjutso Sora V3, Lamzu Atlantis V3, and you also have the Scyrox V8, which is a big value for money mouse with a wedge-shaped design as well. But anyway, this XM2w 4K V2 is available for price of $119.99. The Endgamegear XM2w 4K has a clean minimalist look with a medium to large size wedge-shaped design, and the scroll wheel here looks outstandingly small on this mouse. You got the Endgamegear logo on the side. One standout visual element is the protruding USB-C connector up at the front. This is not something you would see most modern mice having today because these days most people game with wireless connectivity and using the mouse wired is just not very common. It does look cool though because it looks very old school to me. Overall, this is a no-nonsense design that looks purpose-built for competitive play. The XM2w 4K feels really solid for its weight. There is no creaking or flexing when you press the buttons or grip on the sides. Everything feels tight and well assembled. The buttons, the scroll wheel, even the sides, it gives you the confidence that this is a mouse that can take it rough. The design of this mouse feels like it's made to last. This has a soft matte coating that feels really good in the hand. It's smooth when your hands are dry, but once you get going, your hands and palms stay planted even during long sessions. And the coating of Endgamegear mice is very well received by a lot of gamers. Stated weight on the website and packaging is 61.5 grams, and for my unit with the skates that come pre-installed, it weighs in at 60.3 grams. Now I'm 100% sure that many people, especially today, would be a little put off by the weight, and that is fair. Everyone has a weight that they are most comfortable with, and you know the weight is what it is. If you're not comfortable using 60-gram mice, then best to look for alternatives. Or if you're okay gaming with a wire, the XM2 8K V2, that one is 51.5 grams on the spec sheet. Now before I get into more detail with the shape and how it feels from my experience, to put things into perspective, my hand size is 17.5 by 9. In general, this is a claw-friendly wedge shape that has prominent locked-in stability. The XM2w 4K V2 has a noticeably wider body, a deliberate contrast to something like the OP1 shape. And this extra width isn't just for looks though, it gives the mouse a very stable planted feel, especially when aiming horizontally. It feels like the mouse naturally resists small unintended shifts and also makes the mouse feel very easy to lift. While it is not the most nimble feeling shape, it is excellent for controlled precision and stability. Towards the front, the primary buttons on the XM2w 4K V2 are exceptionally wide, some of the largest I've ever experienced on a mouse, but you have a lot of freedom to place your index and middle fingers exactly where you want without feeling cramped. Now there are no deep grooves on the buttons either, which gives a more neutral surface for different grip styles. And the button height is low at the front and then ramps up steadily towards the back. The lower front means your fingers don't have to arch as much, reducing fatigue during long sessions. Now the side design is one of the standout features of this shape. When viewed from the the top down, the sides slant inward as they drop towards the base, which means that even though the mouse measures fairly wide on paper, it feels narrower in the hand than the specs suggest. On top of that, the sides have a subtle inward curve, giving you a locked-in contact point lower down near your fingertips. This design also makes it easier to lift and reposition the mouse since your fingers naturally wedge under the side curves for better grip. And combined with its weight, the XM2w 4K V2 feels surprisingly easy to handle. For the hump and rear, the hump peaks just behind the center. It's about a thumb's width back, giving your palm a comfortable resting point without feeling like it's pushing your hand forward. This helps to keep your grip consistent and prevents you from having to consciously find the right hand placement each time you pick it up. And last but not least, the rear is slightly flat out, but not overly so. It's just enough to support your hand into a nice grip position. The XM2w 4K V2 isn't ideal for small hand sizes. It's usable, but it's just not optimal, especially for a wedge-shaped design, which is why many people look to other options like the Lamzu Atlantis, the Atlantis Mini, or Ninjutso Sora and Sora V2. Those come off as alternative size options that cater to different people. But that said though, if this mouse came in a size that's better suited for my hand, I'd have no hesitation in choosing this over the others. And now here's a closer look to help you visualize the different grip styles on the XM2w 4K V2 with reference to my hand size. My hand size is 17.5 by 9, and for the relaxed claw grip, it feels very natural here. My palm rests comfortably on the hump, finger lands nicely on the buttons, and the lower front keeps my hand at a relaxed angle. For the regular claw grip, it's fine as well and easy enough to handle without straining my hand. Moving further up, the aggressive claw grip, it's where it starts to feel restrictive because of the width of the mouse. Also, with this grip style, it's not as agile to handle as slimmer shapes, which is kind of a bad thing because for this grip style, your fingers are locked in, so all movement is controlled with your arm and wrist. Then we have the palm grip style, and the length for my hand size is just enough, but the fingers curl a bit and ends up feeling more like a palm claw hybrid than a true palm grip. And last but not least, we have the fingertip grip style, and it's possible, but I get some palm contact unless I arch my hand higher. The shape of this mouse is quite wide as well, so for sure not a mouse I would pick to use a fingertip grip style, as that makes it feel limiting with the adjustability. Primary buttons use Kailh GX mechanical switches, which are super responsive, and well, they are a bit on the harder side, but have a very nice tactile click. Very unlikely that you will misclick on this mouse, and they are not impossible to get used to, but I can imagine someone coming from on-run optical switches to find these feel too heavy. These switches also support GX speed and GX safe modes, letting you tweak the debounce time depending on whether you want maximum speed or the safest, most stable experience. Combined with the low profile button ramp and wide surface, the clicks feel very consistent across the entire button area from tip to back. And this is something that stands out to me compared to other mice that I own. For the scroll wheel on the XM2w 4K V2, it's got a rubber textured grip that feels secure under my finger, and it's a very firm scroll experience. It's got a Kailh black encoder, and the ones used for this V2 model are the new generation that was made available earlier this year. So not the same ones that was breaking down in older mice that had Kailh black encoders. So far it's been working just fine. Scroll experience feels as tight as what I have in my OP1w 4K. Clicking the wheel, I would say that it is pretty hard compared to what you can find today. I double click my scroll wheel a lot in game, and I find it very difficult to do that on this mouse. But on a positive note, I haven't experienced any accidental scrolling when trying to press down. Overall, I find the scroll wheel to be okay. Personally, I prefer larger wheels with more resistance and snappier resets after clicking, but this one serves well enough for gaming. The side buttons are super loud, which is an experience that I get from the OP1 as well. It is super tactile, which for gaming is perfectly good, but using it as a daily driver, I'd imagine if there was an option for something more refined, that would be much preferred. Button size is good enough. The rear side button extends pretty far back, which is very much appreciated. And for the front side button, for my hand size, I can just reach it with the tip of my thumb. So not the most optimal for me, but it's still usable. Now here's a quick sound test to give you a better idea of how this mouse sounds. So this mouse comes with two styles of PTFE skates, the small and large set. The small set are pre-installed and both are the same material and they glide smoothly on most surfaces. It hits that sweet spot between control and speed. Nothing outstanding, but nothing that should bother you unless you have a very specific preference for speedy or controlled experience. Now, the XM2w 4K V2 is built for speed and precision and is powered by the Pixart POR 3950 U plus 1F95A sensor. Basically a tuned POR 3950 sensor, and it delivers up to 30,000 dpi and a polling rate of 4,000 Hz. And the only real thing that I noticed that was different with this mouse is in the settings, where you have a wider selection of lift-off distances, which is a range from 0.7 to 1.7 millimeters with an increment of 0.1. Connectivity-wise, you got wireless 2.4 GHz, and of course, you can use this wired if you wish to do so. But just keep in mind that with a wired connection, polling rate is limited to 1000 Hz maximum. Endgamegear's mice, if you didn't know, they prioritize performance over everything else. So they don't mind showing the bird to battery life because their focus is to squeeze out as much performance as possible. That is something that makes their mice very appealing, and this has a 335 mAh battery inside, and you get 30 hours on 4000 Hz polling rate, which seems like the same number as the V1. Endgamegear did introduce power saving features that you can enable through the software. So by default, the sensor switches to power saving mode after 1 minute of inactivity and then goes into deep sleep mode after 3 minutes. And if you have the power saving mode on and run this at 1000 Hz polling rate, you can get about 54 hours out of a full charge. So it's still not a lot if you compare it to other mice with a similar weight on the market. The software is very basic, it's simple, lightweight, and an efficient program. This one that I downloaded, I checked, has no viruses. So on the software, you can adjust your LOD from 0.7 to 1.7 as I've said earlier, and you can set up to 4 CPI presets, which then you can cycle through with the mode button under the mouse. Under the advanced tab is where you can toggle motion sync, select your polling rate, various filters, and settings for all buttons. And here is where you can select the GX speed or safe mode for GX switches. Also, you will notice a glass surface mode, and to my knowledge, that is not made for glass pads. It's just to make the sensor work on something like a clear glass table or a window, for whatever reason. Anyway, you have 6 programmable controls as well, and the options for your power saving settings. Now, there are many things to like about a mouse, and it varies from person to person. So some of my favorite things about this mouse: the performance is blistering fast according to the click latency and sensor latency tests online since the V1 version. In fact, quality for the price is super good. Personally, I prefer Zowie and Vexi mouse quality, but Endgamegear mice are not too far behind considering the price. The main mouse buttons, these feel tight and are very tactile. There have been a number of people who messaged me before and mentioned that one of the issues they have with modern mice today is that they misclick the buttons because it is just too soft. So when I used this mouse, it reminded me of those conversations, and well, I feel for anyone who shares similar concerns. This mouse and the OP ones as well, you know, the new versions with the Kailh GX mechanical switches, these are very good mice with a safe click experience. Now, final thoughts and what do I think of its value? Endgamegear seems to be very consistent with the experience between the two models, the XM2w 4K V2 and the OP1w 4K non-V2 version that I have. The funny thing is that when I was using and writing about this mouse, I felt like I was writing my review of the OP1 again because it feels the same, but of course the shape is very different. So if you are thinking of giving that mice a try, I'd strongly recommend choosing the model based on the size that fits you and not which is more popular. I think Endgamegear releasing the V2 version of the XM2s and the OP1s is a very odd thing to do, and that's because the difference between V1 and V2, I would say, is negligible. If you already own the V1, I see no point in getting the V2 unless yours is giving you problems. I feel like they should have done something different for this launch because very soon the Ninjutso Sora V3 should be coming out, and I'm quite certain that Lamzu would soon look into giving the Atlantis model an update. Also, not forgetting the Scyrox V8, which is a very popular budget option for wedge-shaped mouse. And these are 3 very successful alternatives to the original XM2. My word of advice is that for anyone who has similar hand size to mine or smaller, I would strongly recommend not to get this mouse. And it's not because that it's bad, it's just that this shape and size is not optimal for small hand sizes. You know, I sometimes use mice that feel wider in the hand, like the Viper V3 Pro and the Vexi XEV2, and those are very stable to aim with. But for a wedge-shaped design like this, it doesn't feel as good the wider it is. I'm quite sure that if you get this one, you will think that it's fine for the first 2 weeks, and trust me, you will eventually wish that it was a little smaller, and that's when you will start looking for alternatives. So for smaller hands, if you want a wedge shape like this, look at other brands. Trust me, for wedge-shaped mice, getting a fitting size or a little smaller makes a world of difference. Because it is nothing like universal shaped mice, for example, a Viper V3 Pro, which is overall larger than this mouse, but yet it feels so much more comfortable to use and game on a daily basis, I kid you not. It's just the wedge shape is not as forgiving as other shapes, so keep this in mind. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful in any way, please leave a like and subscribe to support my channel. And I guess I'll see you in the next one.